And so we have this very ambivalent reaction, I think, to the path, very ambivalent response, which I myself often felt with Rinpoche. I'd spend time with him. I would sit down to dinner with him, or more likely lunch at the picnic tables in Tail of the Tiger. And he would be sitting there. I would come downstairs. Oh, Rinpoche's there, he's having lunch. And of course nobody's sitting around him. And there's a reason for that. So, I'm in Chicago in graduate school, and I come and visit, and I think, okay, this is my big chance. So I sit down next to Rinpoche, and suddenly I am overcome with terror. And I'm not exaggerating. I start, and with him, you felt like your clothes were totally stripped off at all times. And you try to say something like, "Hi, Rinpoche." And the amazing thing was, I think it was his field of awareness, you saw this pitiful, pathetic, terrified little person basically trying to get a handle on him. And you're trying to manipulate him, and you're trying to get him to acknowledge you. And all I said was, "Hi, Rinpoche." And all of a sudden, my whole thing is totally exposed. And then, of course, the big problem is lunch has just started. And I would start to sweat, and I would, more than anything, I wanted him to say back, "Hi." But he didn't. He would just turn slowly and look at me. And I many times thought, I'm either going to faint or I'm going to die. Those are the only two possibilities. It was so hard being around him, and it was so hard being around the community for the same reason. Somehow he created a situation where everybody's mask was basically, I wouldn't say it was off, but it was falling off all the time. And you kept trying to put it back on, and it kept falling off. At Tail of the Tiger, there was this long driveway, and I used to take the bus up, and they would drop me off at the end of the driveway. And the minute I got off the bus, I would start to feel like throwing up. And I would feel like throwing up from that moment until I got back on the bus. 3 or 4 days later, a week later, whatever it was. But here's the ambivalence, which I think we all feel. I'd get away from him because I spent half my time trying to be closer to him, and the other half trying to get away from him. And when I would get away from him, even during seminars, you go through these, periods, because he hung around the house. He was in the dining room. He was talking to people. He was there. So it was in your face a lot of the time. And it was a very, small community at that time, very, very small. And what I would do is after his afternoon talk, he would talk after lunch, and about 2, during the warm weather, there was a hill up and back, and I, like many of us, I had a little tent because the farmhouse couldn't sleep very many people. And about 2 o'clock or 3, I would go up and I'd go to bed for the night. But then I would wake up the next morning and I would be in a different place. And suddenly the feeling of being completely suffocated by my own vomit and my own shit, and the feeling of incredible, overwhelming anxiety all the time, which really I felt that much of the time when I was in the first year or two. It'd be completely gone, and I would get up, and you know how it goes, because you go through this too, and look outside, and it's an most unbelievable day you've ever seen, and you look at the mountains, and you smell the air, and you feel the warmth of the sun, and you feel so open, and you run into parts of yourself that you didn't even know were there. Beautiful parts and inspired parts and open. And you look at people's faces and you see them and you feel a tremendous sense of their sacredness and you feel love for them. And so then when lunch came, I'd go back into the dining room and Rinpoche's sitting there and no one's sitting around him. And I would go through the whole process again. And that is the nature of the journey. And, at that time and later, I used to think, well, is there some way I can get out of the journey and be up here and look down at myself being completely freaked out and be okay with it? And the answer is actually no. The thing about the journey is it is all consuming. We, many times, those of us who meditate would like to orchestrate our own enlightenment. We want to be in charge of what happens on our journey. And it's understandable because that's how we work as humans. But there's one place where it doesn't work, and this is it.